but his word was like a burning fire. Shut up in my bones, that's Jeremiah 20 and 9. Say, whole lot of burning. Something about that Holy Ghost fire. Say fire. Feels like fire. Come on, put your hands together, come on. Holy Ghost, fire. I said Holy Ghost, fire. Shut up in my bones. Fire, shut up in my bones. Fire, fire. I said fire, shut up in my bones. Fire, ooh, fire. I said Holy Ghost. Come on, let's take it out. Say fire. Feels like fire. Whole lot of fire. Come on, favorite Friday, let's go home. Oh, say just like fire. Just like fire. Shut up in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. Holy Ghost fire. And shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. In my bones, 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 bones. Holy Ghost fire. Holy Ghost fire.
Heaven is like it unto 10 virgins. 5 of them were wise, and 5 of them were foolish. But when the Lord shall come, I want to be like the wise. Oh, I want to be ready when I want to be ready when I gotta live my life every day. No man knows the day nor the hour. I got to be. I gotta live my life every day. No man knows the day nor the hour. I got to be. Yeah, I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. I gotta be ready. Ready when I gotta live my life every day. No man knows the day nor the hour. I got to be. I gotta live my life every day. No man knows the day nor the hour. I got to be. Hey, I wanna be ready. I wanna be ready. When the first trumpet sounds, I got to be ready. I gotta be ready. When you crack those clouds, gotta be ready. When you come back again, he's coming back. Gotta
WIFTV-PM.
Well, good morning. Good morning. This is Tasha here with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. Thank you for joining this morning. I would like for you to make sure that as you are joining, that you like, that you share the broadcast. I have a lot to talk about today. A lot of folks have been asking the question about getting divorced and how that happens. And as you know, this show called I Do, I Did, I Don't is all about how do you navigate the divorce process? How do you make sure that you are surviving and thriving through the process? And essentially, I've tried to create what I did not have for myself as I walked through the process, and making sure that you have the knowledge that is going to help you to remain whole, to remain physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually whole through the process. And so several people have asked lately questions like, okay, well, all right, I'm thinking about divorce and how do I get divorced and how do I even start? Like, what are the types of divorce that exist? How do I make sure that I'm choosing the right one? Where do I go to start the process? Things like that. And so I like to share information that I know, and I will share some information that I have maybe just a little bit of knowledge about. But it is a teaser and an introduction to the information for you to do the additional research to find the information that you need so that you can navigate your divorce yourself. It is one of the things I'll say to start with is every divorce is different. Every divorce is different because the people involved are different, because the circumstances are different, the assets are different, the children. Every divorce is different. And so it's easy for people to say, hey, here's what I would do, or this is what I did, and this is how I managed it. But you know your spouse, you know your children, you know your financial situation, and you know kind of how you need to navigate with someone when you are going through the process of divorce. So I want to talk about that a little bit and just give you some things to think about when it comes to deciding to proceed with a divorce. So in terms of the types of divorces in Illinois, there's really only one way to get divorced. Think about this. There's one way. Either you decide, meaning you as a couple decide that you are ending the marital relationship and getting a divorce, also called dissolution of marriage in Illinois, or the judge is deciding. And so you have to decide how you want to navigate that, right? Is it something that you can agree to? Can you have some conversation and the two of you sit down and decide this is how we're going to split? This is how we are going to move forward in our lives separately. This is how we're going to move forward in our lives separately, but still jointly because we still have children together, for example. Or in some cases, some people still have a business together. And though they're getting divorced as a married couple, they are still managing a business relationship. So it's important to consider all of those things and to think about, how do we want to end this? How do we want to move forward? And are we going to decide and have the difficult conversations and get to a place where we can agree? Or can that not happen and we need to involve a judge who's going to decide for us? So really, that's it. It's either you're deciding or a judge deciding. And how you proceed with you deciding or the judge deciding, you being plural, meaning, the two of you in the marital relationship, then determines how you move forward and what kind of way you file and just how you go about this, right? So in many cases, there is divorce or dissolution of marriage, but there's also a legal separation. And some people will opt for that option first, oftentimes because they're trying to figure out, can we work this out? Can we work through the issues? But I also want to be legally protected to make sure that financial decisions that one spouse is making isn't going to negatively impact me, especially if we are living apart. And, I don't want to be jointly and severally liable for bad decisions the other spouse can make while we're living apart during this time. And so people will opt for a legal separation. So it provides you some level of legal protection and financial protection, but it is not a divorce. However, what I want you to be clear about is a legal separation is, in fact, that it is a legal procedure, a legal process. So you actually have to have a judgment that says you are legally separated. That gives you that protection. So the fact that you two agree and decide we're just going to go our separate ways, I'm going to live over here, he or she's going to live over there, that doesn't qualify as a legal separation. It is actually a process that you need to go through the court. So in order to do that, it's a filing, it is an agreement, it is actually a court order that says this is what it is, okay? So you're not divorced yet, but you are, and maybe you don't get divorced. You're figuring it out. So there's a legal separation. There's also an annulment, and we don't talk a lot about annulment, but annulment is an annulment basically is saying I'm undoing this marriage as if it never happened. All right. So oftentimes in religious circles, particularly I know in Catholicism, marriages tend to be annulled as opposed to people just getting divorced. And that is because the church frowns upon divorce. And so if it is sort of undone in a way that says that it never happened, then somehow that seems more palatable. So you'll see people get an annulment, and that there are a lot of requirements around each of these things that you're going to do. So you have to really understand the legal process, right? So we talked about legal separation and the fact that you have to go through the court system in order to get that. Not used very often, but if you're working through things, an annulment has even more requirements associated with it. And I don't know a whole lot about it, so I can tell you at least the little bit that I've learned about it, but they are allowed in Illinois. And essentially it makes your marriage considered null and void as if it never happened. But there are some pretty strict requirements to be met. And you have to do that within some very clearly defined time frames as well. So I'll give you a couple of examples around grounds for getting an annulment in Illinois. And I'm going to say, make sure that you check on this. Make sure that you check do your own research, check with your legal advisor to make sure, read the statute yourself to make sure that you understand what's required. And so let's say if this was a marriage that involved fraud of some sort. So let's say there was a misrepresentation of someone's ability to have children. You knew that you wanted to have children in the marriage. The person said that they could. They actually knew that they couldn't, but told you that they could. Or, some other deception, something like that. Then when you learn about it, you have to file within a certain number of days to have an annulment. Okay, so the number of days is not always the same for everything. So that one, I won't cover as much information around an annulment, but I will move forward and talk through the divorce, because this is where most of the questions come in from people around, okay, well, how do I get divorced? Is this something I can do myself? Do I have to have a lawyer to do it? Do I have to go through the court system? And the short answer is yes, you have to go through the court system in some shape, form, or fashion, because your divorce is a legal contract. It's a legal covenant between the two people in the marital relationship. And so the court has to issue an order basically undoing or dissolving that marriage. So you can do that a number of ways, right? You can sit down together and do the kitchen table. I'm going to say the kitchen table divorce as opposed to the dining table divorce, because this is generally, most times people don't have much, right? They haven't acquired assets. They may not have children. And so it's just two adults saying, you know what, let's just decide we're going to go our separate ways. We're not going to do this anymore. And it's a pretty easy relationship to undo, right? Because you don't have a lot of assets and things. So you can sit down, and I'm saying kitchen table because if you don't have a whole lot of assets, then you're probably sitting down at the kitchen table in your little apartment or whatever it is. But there are people that do this also with assets. And so you're sitting down and you're making an agreement and saying, hey, here's what we're going to split. I'm going to take the bedroom set. You're going to take the kitchen table set, whatever it is. We don't have a lot. I'll keep what's in my bank account. You keep what's in yours. Hey, we saved this money. Let's split it 50-50. Or that I put 30% in there and you put 70% in it. So I'll take my 30, you take your 70, whatever. It tends to be a relationship in which you can sit down and talk and work through things. Not that it's not a difficult conversation, but you can do that kitchen table divorce, if you will. And it's really a do-it-yourself divorce, right? So it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to hire anybody to do it. You take care of it on your own, and you can file the paperwork. Now, there's an advantage, right? If you don't have much, then the advantage is you're not involved in a whole lot of drama. It's easy. You file it yourself. It doesn't cost a whole lot. The disadvantage is you don't know what you don't know, right? So let's say that the spouse has been saving and, kind of developing their own little stash somewhere that's considered marital property, but you don't know about it. They have no legal obligation to disclose that information to you in the process. So you may not know some things that exist that could rightfully be yours. And so, you take that risk. You may say it's not worth it. Even if they did, it can't be much. So let's just move ahead, move forward. Totally fine. Totally fine way to manage a divorce is to do it yourself. And many of the do-it-yourself processes, this is just sitting down, having an agreement, right? Between the two of you, we're going to file the paperwork. The court's going to say, hey, do you both agree to this? You both say yes. All right, you're done. The other option that you have is an online divorce. And an online divorce gives you a little bit more information about how the process works. There are several different online platforms that can help walk you through an online divorce. I won't talk about those because I'm definitely not endorsing any of them. But I will say that, you can find those that may they'll cost you under $1,000 to do. Now, there are advantages because you can manage through it yourself. And as it guides you through the questionnaires, then they will tell you things. They will make you aware of things that you should probably consider. Like, do you have assets? And it'll ask some questions about that to make you think about those kinds of things. It may ask if you own a home, if you have vehicles, if you have equity in your place, things like that, right? So it's going to give you a little bit more sense of the kinds of things that are going to be involved legally in getting the divorce so that you become aware of it. And essentially, you answer your questions. It spits out the paperwork for you. You can sign it, file it, and then you have to provide notice to the other party if they're not aware that you're getting divorced, meaning your current spouse. They have to be notified legally. And then, you kind of go through the proceedings from there. So some of the advantages really of doing the online divorce, it removes a little bit of the guesswork because they sort of guide you through it. It's a lot to navigate. You have to show up in person to do the filings. You don't know what paperwork, you don't know. And oftentimes the people in the offices are not the most helpful because they are doing this every day. They're dealing with a lot of folks that are coming in and they're highly emotional and, all sorts of things are happening. So they may not be the most helpful, but, you'll run into some, and I certainly have, that are extremely helpful in the process. I would say if you're going to the office, you're going to file on your own, be nice. Be very nice. Try to understand the perspective of the person that's there. And they're willing to help, definitely. But they're looking for folks that, just aren't coming in with this huge attitude and just falling apart and making their lives harder. So you, as I said, it's a lot to navigate and trying to understand what you need to do. The benefit for the online process is it helps you a little bit more with some of that information. It will give you a little bit more information about what you have to do. Again, they're going to guide you through these interviews. and the information that's available. You'll complete your forms. It helps you know a little bit more about the legal issues that'll be a part of the divorce. And it can be a good option for people because it's pretty straightforward. It's a little bit more involved than you sitting down at the kitchen table, making a decision about what you want to do. But it is a very, very good option, and it's a less expensive option than the next one, because the next one is litigation. And litigation, what I will say is, I think it tends to be the default option, right, for a lot of folks. It's also the most expensive option. And litigation is really an attorney-driven process. So you tend to think that, okay, I'm going to file, I'll be in charge of this and how this moves. But in all honesty, you're really not. The attorneys are, and you're trying to navigate the process. That's why it becomes difficult sometimes, trying to understand, how do I make sure that this is going like I need it to, especially when I don't understand the process as well. I'm depending on the attorneys to understand, and they do understand it, and they understand very well, and they understand how to milk the process as well in many cases. But they also understand they're navigating a lot too. So I won't be extremely hard on the attorneys in that sense. They're also navigating and trying to get you to the place of understanding how you're going to either make an agreement or go forward into a trial in which the judge decides, because you can't decide. So remember what I said, if you get a divorce, either you're deciding what it's going to be or the judge is deciding what it's going to be. So it's pretty, that process, it can wreak havoc on you, on your children, on the other spouse. It is not designed to be a friendly process. It can be, but it's not really designed that way. And it's very expensive. And the expense wreaks financial havoc on you and on your spouse, and ultimately the impact on your children, if you do have children, or on your estate, because you're taking money out of your estate. Whatever you've saved, whatever you've put away, is now coming out to pay attorneys to guide this process. And it's not cheap. Attorneys are $200 to $500 an hour, and many of them bill at 10-minute increments. So you have a 10-minute call, you're paying a good $50 for that. And it's like, seriously, is that what you want to do? So you have to understand when litigation is required, because sometimes it totally is. Sometimes there is no sitting down, talking to. It's highly contentious. You can't sit down at the kitchen table and decide this is how we're going to do that. It just doesn't work for you. So you have to move forward with litigation, and it's okay. It's okay if that's what you know that you have to do, and you are committed to making the divorce happen, then you do that. You do that, but you have to be wise as you do it so that you manage your expenses. So you can move forward in litigation. We talked about that a little bit, but you have a couple of other options too, like mediation, in which you don't have an attorney trying to help you to decide how to divide your assets. So sometimes you can do something in divorce that's called like bifurcation, right? Where you sort of separate this process of the divorce. And in Illinois, again, remember, there is no fault. So there's no reason for divorce. Before, you would have to prove this person did this, that, or the other. That was grounds for divorce. That doesn't exist anymore. The two of you just decide it's irretrievable, irreconcilable. We're getting divorced. We're not, the court's not going to place blame anywhere. You're just going to move forward in the process. So you can separate it so that there's this divorce piece, but then you're handling all of the other concerns, like the property division and the financial stuff and your child parenting allocation agreement. What else? Several other things. I can't think of all of them right now, but you sort of split it so that you can handle this. And let's say you get the divorce, But then there's the financial stuff that still needs to be handled. And I've definitely heard of cases and where people have actually been divorced and the judge has said you are legally divorced as of today, but then we have to handle this financial separation and this piece of your assets, and that could take another year or two in some cases. And I think one of the misconceptions is sometimes people hear this term contested and uncontested divorce, right? If someone is filing for divorce because they no longer want to be married, you can contest it, and there are grounds for contesting, but the court's not going to make someone stay married to you that doesn't want to be married to you anymore. So you once you're contesting, maybe you're contesting on certain grounds and say, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm going to be financially taken care of because the court's trying to make sure everybody lands on their feet. I need to make sure that this happens because I think that there are hidden assets or whatever. Or I've never managed any of the money. I don't understand where everything is. I need to make sure that I have a very clear picture so that this division is fair. Those kinds of things happen, right? But I think some people believe that if they say, nope, I don't want a divorce, that the court is going to say, okay, well, you can't get divorced. That's not how it works. And in all honesty, nobody can make anybody stay married who doesn't want to stay married. So the process might take longer. It might cost you more money, but the fact is it's going to happen. Period, the end. And either you're going to decide how it happens or the judge is going to decide how it happens. So there are some other approaches that are a little bit more collaborative in how you decide going through the process. It's, that may be a little bit more involved when you have more assets or have more. And so I'm going to talk about those a little bit after the break because I want you to know these are options that you have available to you. Also, it's still part of the litigation process, but you don't necessarily have to have attorneys involved that cost as much money. So we'll talk more about that on the other side of the break, and I'll see you in a minute.
WIFTBPM.
All right, well, Angela Oya Fumike. As you know, this is I Do, I Did, I Don't on the What's in It for the Black People media. Start our way into this journey of divorce and healing. So we came together under a survival mentality, not under a friendship of being in love. First being friends and then being in love or growing in love. We came together under, we're trying to survive, we're two kids trying to survive. Okay, we're gonna survive together because if you're handling this end of the survival and I'm handling this end, years that you've accepted this is what it's been, and now you've made this decision. And he wasn't there. He wasn't even seeing that you were done. Here's what it was. Just like I ignored on the front end that he didn't love me like that, he was so disconnected from me by the point when I decided to leave that he didn't see the writing on the wall. Wow. Just didn't see it. But he didn't know that woman because he never took the time to meet her. Mm-hmm. And so you created your plan, and that's key, I think, in having a plan. If you are going to, whether you're deciding together that this isn't going to work any longer and we're splitting, and having a plan on how you're going to move forward is pretty key. You knew at this point I had to create your own plan, and you were moving forward with that. In my case, I didn't have a plan. Things happened pretty abruptly, and I was creating a plan on the fly along the way. I don't recommend that. You forgive yourself. You forgive you. Do the work of forgiving yourself that you may be able to actually forgive others.
Ooh, I miss your kiss. Oh, your kiss is one of a kind. It feels so nice. Girl, you do it right. I miss you. Oh, girl, you don't go too fast. You take your time. Just how I miss you. Hey.
You kiss it, then I'm drifting off your love. Keeps me floating, girl. I miss you. And ooh, it feels so good. I wanna come down. Girl, I'm missing that love. Come on. Ooh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. Oh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me.
All right, welcome back to I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. This is Tasha Napper here. We are talking about divorce. I do, I did, I don't. If you are tuned in, make sure you like, make sure you share the broadcast. You can also share What's in It for the Black People Media, because there is a lot of really good content on What's in It for the Black People Media. It is for us, by us kind of a station. And so I believe this network is going to continue to grow and to take off. And it is such an enhancement to our community to have us talking about issues that are related to us and doing so unapologetically. So I want to make sure that you are also benefiting from that great content. So make sure you go over to the What's in It for the Black People Media page, follow them, share as well, so that you have access to all of that content. And you will also receive notifications when live shows are going on. DJ Reese, I got a question for her. Who was that? Who was the artist of that song we just heard?
That was the great Sean White that we
That's
saw at
what
the
I
that was him that we saw at the 1 year anniversary on Woodlawn.
Yes, he was there. And What's in It for the Black People Media's 1 year anniversary, and sang the song in person and live. And yes, I love the song. It always comes on. We play it a lot coming into our show and on the breaks or at the start of the show. And the brother did a great job singing the song, y'all. And the brother is fine. We about to turn into Weeko Wednesday.
He just light skinned. That's it.
No. I kind of like my chocolate brothers too, but no, he's a good looking brother and nice, muscle bound, a little taller.
I look at you trying to say I do again. You're like, he look nice. I do.
Yes, he seemed like he's a sweet dude too. But I love the song, and shout out to him because he came along with all the other artists that were there. It was a fantastic time. I probably should have started the show talking about that, but it was fantastic. The talent that was there, just the camaraderie and the celebration, and really taking a moment to stop back and acknowledge what's been accomplished over the past year and Maze Jackson's vision coming to life and doing it on his terms and on his own. I am really proud to be a part of that and proud to be a part of What's in It for the Black People Media and the dissemination of information that's really going to help us. So, all right, before the beginning of the break, we were talking about divorce and ways to get divorced and kind of some of the methods options that you have available to you, right? And one of those is litigation. So we talked through, essentially, there's only one way. Either you're deciding what you're going to do or the judge is deciding how it's going to go. And in doing so, you can do it yourself and make an agreement. You can get some help from an online service that kind of helps you with all the paperwork that you need to pull out and file, and some of the concerns that need to be addressed as a part of the filing. Or you can have an attorney. And, that is, attorneys will have a great deal of knowledge, but it's also quite expensive to pay for that body of knowledge and navigating through the process. But I want you to understand, choosing an attorney, most times the divorce is attorney driven as opposed to being driven by you, which, you've got to know how to manage that. So that's part of it. But then when you're in litigation, the other options you have available are things like mediation or a collaborative divorce. Now, mediation, let's talk about that a little bit. It is a third party who you retain essentially to help you work through the issues that need to be resolved as part of the divorce. So, how are we splitting the finances? How are we going to allocate parenting time between us? How do we manage when we have, the rules between two houses now that the children will be moving between one place and another place, and our bedtime's consistent? Do we have the same rules? What happens if there's a punishment issued at one place? Does it carry over to the other place? Just stuff like that. What happens when we start dating again? What are the rules of engagement there? So a mediator can help you really understand what are your real issues and help you to navigate discussions and facilitating an agreement to get to the place that you're settling. All right, we're both in a good place. We've both given up something, or what I really wanted was this. They can have that. That's not really important to me. So the mediator can help sort of make some of those compromises, provide the perspectives that you need of each other in the process, and help you really reach a resolution that both of you can live with. That's not always an easy process getting there, but it is far more collaborative in the approach. And you spend money on it. It's going to cost you a few $1,000s to do it. However, it is still a lot cheaper than you would pay for an attorney to walk you through the entire divorce. So it is a very good option available to you. It is a neutral third party who is there and skilled at mediating, there solely for the purpose of helping you get to agreement on the issues that are important so that you can continue to move forward in the process and not just fight your way through the whole process. All right. So I think it's a really, really wise option to use. And honestly, you can use it even afterwards. So after the divorce is final, especially when you have children involved, a mediator is a really good option to help you work through what's our parenting agreement? How are we going to do this if we just disagree and we have several issues that continue to be pain points for us that are not allowing us to co-parent effectively? It's an option that you have available as well. So don't think about the mediator as just someone that you can use in the divorce process, but actually it could be someone that you use after the divorce process to help continue to make this agreement, this situation work. All right. And then there's this process called collaborative divorce. I had not heard much about this, but this is something that I'm just learning about that I thought I would share with you as well, because it's not something that says you're going to work out your divorce collaboratively, right? But it is this collection of resources of people that you have available to you to help you work through all of the things you need to work through for the divorce. So it's a structured process, and it really becomes this team approach to the divorce. So you may have, for example, a financial coach. That's part of your collaborative process. You may have a mediator or an attorney. You might even have a divorce coach or lawyers or a therapist. But it is this collection of people that are going to help you work through the things that you need to work through in order to get to the other side of the divorce, to kind of settle some stuff, to just wade through all of the stuff, all the muck, all the mire. So it's it's not, divorce itself isn't just a legal process, right? It is a process that is about money. It is a process that's about emotions. It's a process that's about kids, if you have children involved. And so it becomes very difficult at times and very, what do I want to say? It becomes in some ways kind of irrational many times because of the level of emotion that is involved. And so we've talked before on the show about having a prenuptial agreement and the benefit of doing that, because you decide, even if it's a postnuptial agreement, but what it says is this is how we're going to end this. If we ever get to this place, let's make some agreements now on how we're going to do that, because it takes some of that emotion and some of that drama out if things do not go as planned. And so it is, when that's the case, you just have to get to a place where you work through it in the way that's going to work for you, because one way doesn't work for everyone. And on top of that, everybody's not the same people. You know, you don't have what your cousin did in their divorce is not necessarily going to work for you and what you're doing in your divorce. And so you just you have to figure out what approach works for you and be okay with that. You know, if it's a contested, highly contentious divorce and you have to pay for it, that's where you're going to have to be. Or you take a time out and you say, you know what, let's just not do this right now. Let's go ahead and legally separate. Let's take a minute and let's let some of these emotions die down and figure out how we're going to move forward in a way that is beyond the hurt, beyond the I want to punish you because you did this, that, and the other to me, beyond, you know, I don't think you deserve to have access to the kids. You know, that gets crazy, crazy when all those things start to happen. And so sometimes the legal separation does help you just take that time out. Take time out, step back. Let's let some time pass that we get through some of the emotion. And now we can have a more balanced conversation about how to move this forward in a way that does feel fair and that does help both of us to land on our feet and survive post-divorce. Sometimes that really truly is the best approach. Have your cooling off period, and then you can decide how to move forward in a way that doesn't financially drain you. Other times, that's not the case, and it's okay if that is the case. You can want to do it that way, but if the other party is not participating, the other party is not there, the other party is not willing, then you've got to do what you got to do. And so you have several options that are available to you in the process of getting divorced that, you know, some people sometimes will start with, let's just file on our own. And now we don't agree. It's not working. All right, well, let's get a mediator. And you can sort of step up and maybe you get the mediator and that works for you, or it doesn't. And you wind up going to attorneys and litigation. But the benefit will be that some of the conversations have happened early. You've talked about it yourselves. You start to understand what's important to you, what you want in a divorce, what you don't. The other part is the mediator has helped you start to have the right level of conversation. So by the time you get to an attorney later, it's not as difficult or contentious and things can move along a little more smoothly. At least that's the hope, right? That you have walked through the process in that way that's going to be more beneficial to you and hopefully cost you less money because you understand the tenets of the divorce, what needs to be decided, what needs to be in the decree, what the judge is going to ask about, what agreements you need to make, and what's important to you. So if you've had to step into it and do it that way, it's okay. That's fine. You've probably helped yourself out quite a bit and saved yourself some money even if you have started in that way. So yeah, I think it's you know, the litigation piece is probably the last option that you want to take because it is so costly. And I can attest to that. Very, very costly. I spent a lot of money. And had there been a cooling off period to just take the time and say, let's just step back, let's just, you know, not be super contentious about it, then we probably could have gotten to a place where we didn't spend that. The downside is the impact that it has now on the financial position that relates to the children later. So it's something that you want to think about because a lot of times you get into it, especially with attorneys, you think that it's going to be a quick process. It is not. It is not a fast process, especially if you're in a big city, because there are a whole bunch of cases. So sometimes you might file something and it'll be 6 weeks before you even get a hearing before the judge to hear what you have to say. That's not a decision, you know, and so you want to understand as much as you can. And I think what's super, super helpful is to go to a family court hearing and watch the process. Just watch how it happens. Watch what the judge says to people. Watch how they interact. Watch how quickly the judge needs to hear what you have to say in order to make decisions to then get to the next case. Because all the things that you think are important, that you want to come in and tell the judge about this, that, and the other, the judge really doesn't care. The judge is like, look, I got 50 other cases today that need to be heard in the next hour. You need to roll in. What's the point? All right, move. And so it becomes sort of disconcerting and shocking to people when they realize that what seems so important to you and so vested, the court doesn't look at it that way. They just don't. They're trying to be efficient and move these cases through so they can get to the next one, because there are so many. And it's not that they're trying to be nasty to you necessarily. It's just, this is the reality of it. Right. So you've got to understand that and how the process works so that you can navigate it well, and that you can, again, be well on the other side of it, because it's already daunting to be a part of a divorce and you weren't expecting to be there. Or even if you were, like, this has been something that you walked through, you don't know how the system works. And then you get there and you're just like, whoa, they won't even hear me out. The judge is like, you got 2 minutes. Like, I have 15 other attorneys standing behind you in line to say what they need to say and give a status update. So I just want you to understand that, like, right, and go into it knowing that they're not on your side. They're not on the other person's side. They really don't have much sympathy for what you're going through, because they're dealing with this and seeing this stuff every day. And again, they're trying to be efficient. They're trying to move through. They're telling you that the law has determined that nobody is at fault necessarily. That's the no fault piece, because it allows the process to move more efficiently. Now we're not doing all the crazy stuff of trying to prove this person did this person did that. Nope. All right, you're going to get divorced. Great. Let's decide what needs to be decided so everybody can move along into whatever life is going to look like for you afterwards. So again, want to make sure that you understand that and just have that perspective. It wasn't something that I had going into court. It was, frankly, I was just like, whoa, this is how this works. This is not cool. But it's what it is, right? And later on, as you go through the process, you start to understand that, and you understand how to navigate it. And again, that's why attorneys can be super helpful, because they know that already. They know what to go in with, what to say, what the law says, how the judge is going to look at it, especially if they've interacted with the judge before. But I want you to know you have options available. You have those options available to you as you start working through the process. And whether you want to get divorced or not, or the spouse wants to get divorced or not, it's going to happen. The judge is not going to say, you cannot get divorced. That is not how it works. It will happen. It may take longer, but the sooner you realize, if you're the spouse who doesn't want the divorce, the sooner you realize that the other person decides that's what they want to do, that's what's going to happen. And you can prolong the process, or you can accept the process and move forward and figure out how to be healthier on the other side of it. So I also want to know what questions, what other topics do you all want to hear about? Because I get a lot of questions, and I start to bring those here and talk through them, like this one. You know, how do you get a divorce? What are the types of divorces? Yeah. What else? What other questions do you have? I think a couple things that are on my mind right now is, how do you manage your parenting agreement, again, between the two households? You know, what are the things that are going to be consistent? Where's the room for the parents to parent in the way that they do without interference from the other parent? The other question I've heard a lot lately is about dating. And when do you talk to the other spouse about the fact that you're dating someone that seems like this is going to go somewhere, and you want to introduce the children? How do you do that? How do you manage that? Is it something, do you talk to your ex first? Do you let them know, or do you introduce the children to the person first or the kid to the person first? How does that work? How do people navigate that? The other thing that I've heard a lot about too is how do you decide, how do you engage how do you engage your the spouse, your former spouse, in large decisions that impact you and the children, but don't, they're your decisions to make. But how do you, what are the rules that you've established that are helpful? So let's say you decide you're going on an extended vacation. How much information do you share with your ex-spouse, with the other parent, because you're taking the children? Just so a lot of things around parenting have been coming up lately, and those are things that I want to know. What do you guys want to hear? What do you want to talk about? What topics should we address next as we continue on this journey with I Do, I Did, I Don't? So when you're tuned in, when you're listening, drop something in the chat, drop something on the I Do, I Did, I Don't page. Let me know what you're thinking, what questions you have, and we'll see if we can cover those topics on the show, and if we can find resources that can help us with some knowledge related to those topics. But in the meantime, I want you all to be well. I want you to enjoy life, whether it is on the other side of divorce or whether it is in the process. I want you to have everything that you need and everything that you deserve. And I wish you all of the strength that you need to navigate what you have to in order to get to the other side of a divorce. So again, this is Tasha with I Do, I Did, I Don't. Thank you for tuning in, and I want you to be well on the other side. Take care.
Oh no, I never had an interest in love until I met you. And I don't know if it's real or is it just a phase I'm going through, but I feel that it's true.